Hello and welcome to the Game Room. My name is Duma and today I have a fun build for you I've been playing on stream for the past 3 weeks or so. This is going to be one of those builds like the Oakensoul DK and the Oakensoul Necro where you can participate in most all content with just one setup. I want to make clear the intent of the build. It's primarily a PvP build that doubles as a solo or group PvE build. So the core of its strength will be in PvP content, but will allow you to transition into the PvE side of things with no issues. The playstyle is a mix of ranged Magblade, which is kind of like your Swallow Soul spammable DPS type, and your typical gank blade on the Magicka side of things. It's about 90% of the strength of each playstyle, but the real strength of the build is that you can do both, switching back and forth in a moment's notice. You can cook people safely from ranged, or build your end cap, slip in, blow someone up, and slip out, all with the same setup. It also flies through any solo content in the game at the highest difficulty with no issues, and performs really well in veteran dungeons. It's been a really fun one to put together. I'll have a mixed bag of gameplay for you to see in action at the end of the video as well. The written guide is up over at thegameroom.tv if you need it, along with tons of other ESO builds and guides. If you learned something today or like the content, please consider liking and subscribing. It's free and goes a long way for the channel. Also, if you're interested in live gameplay, come say hello over sometime on Twitch. I'd love to meet you. Alright, let's take a look. For this build, I'm a Khajiit, but any Magicka-based race will work fine for you. We have 34 attribute points in Magicka and 30 into health, which will put us right over the desired 30k HP mark in PvP, so you don't get two-shot when caught. If you know you're going to have a pure PvE session, then you can just put all 64 points into Magicka for more damage. We're using the Atronach Mundus, which is going to be necessary in order to spam the abilities we need to spam, both defensively and offensively, and we are also a stage 3 vampire. I highly suggest this, especially since our only defensive kit is slippery gameplay and constant self-heals. So any extra damage mitigation we can tack on outside of that is going to go a long way for passive survivability. For our consumables in PvP, we're using Bear Haunch or the cheaper version, Jewels of Misrule. If you just want to do some ganking in overworld PvP, then something like Ghastly Eyeballs will serve you a little better. And you can use any of the standard mag food for PvE, such as Witch Mother's Potent Brew. For our potions, we have one rule option, and that's tripods. We're also going to be using Magicka Escapist Poisons. This is one of those give and take things between ranged and gankblade, where we pull power from one side to round out the other, so you can do both. These poisons aren't going to help your gank attempts much, but they will go a very long way when you're spamming Swallow Soul from ranged, which is what you'll be doing 90% of the time regardless. So it adds an overall value, power, and utility increase to the build. If you haven't ever used these on something like a ranged Magblade build, I highly recommend trying it out. The utility alone has allowed me to clean up kills I may not normally have been able to, and escape when I should have died at times. As we go over the gear, check out how scuffed and general it is with traits and qualities. I left it that way on purpose for this video rather than to clean it all up. For those who have seen the work it's been doing the past weeks, I wanted to show you, you don't have to have it fully optimized to play it and have it perform well. Although obviously it would be better if it was optimized. If you are newer or light on gold or transmute crystals, you'll still be able to play it just fine until you get it cleaned up. For our gear sets, first we have our staple set for the build of War Maiden. One of the best sets in the game for a flat stat increase, giving us over 700 spell damage, more Magicka, and crit. I paired this with a ton of sets. If you asked me about a set, I probably tried it. Prior to this specific setup, I actually never used the Flame Blossom set, even though it got a bit trendy last year for a bit of time. I've heard about it, I've seen it around, but it never really fit into what I was doing before. This actually got put on my radar again because I got absolutely starched for a full BG by another Nightblade running it. So I went and finished farming it myself, and instantly everything clicked together better for the build. So shout out to whoever that gamer was. I appreciate the butt kicking that day. It brought this build together nicely. Flame Blossom gives us one of the best hat tricks of stats of max mag, more spell damage, and penetration. Then it has a really nice proc on a short cooldown that sends a line of fire forward, damaging everything it touches and applying the burning status effect. This is the missing piece to be able to finish off those kills where you are just short on damage on. It's also great to send through balled up teams, nice AoE damage and PvE content, and just a good jack of all trades set for the build. You lose some range damage when parsing from range with Swallow Soul, as your proc won't hit enemies far away, but as you play the build and feel out the range, you can start making it work more for the range aspect of things. It does take a little bit to get used to though. When it comes to ganks, it's absolutely perfect. Both of these sets are in lightweight, so we want a medium helm of your choice. Anything with a line of weapon and spell damage is fine. You want as many well-fitted traits traits as you're comfortable with. The more the better, honestly. If you're familiar with the Perfected Arcanist PvP build, it's a very similar defensive design where we lean on dodge rolls and cloak spam, much like the Perfected Arcanist dodge rolls and rune ward spam. You can round that out with a few impen traits if you like, or even infuse for a bit more stats. But ideally, 4 or 5 well-fitted is going to be best for the build. If you're good with stamina management, you don't necessarily need Tri-Enchants here. We're already at over 30k HP and have a solid amount of magicka, all things considered, with split attributes and using bare haunch food. However, if you're struggling with stam or missing a few well-fitted traits on your gear, it may be a good idea for you to Tri-Enchant your gear for a bigger stam pool as well. I have 2 pieces Tri-Enchanted here, but that's just because how they already were before setting up this build. You could get away with all magicka enchants if you played proficiently as a Nightblade for sure. Our jewelry, including Oakensoul, is all infused with spell damage enchants, and we're using a sharpened lightning staff. For our abilities, first we have Concealed Weapon. This is an absolute must as it gives us one of the best buffs in the game of Major Berserk, increasing our damage done by 10% when we leave stealth, which we will be doing constantly. It also pairs well together with a Vampire passive Strike from the Shadows, which increases our weapon and spell damage after leaving stealth as well. It also gives us permanent Minor Expedition, which is incredibly valuable as speed is a big part of our defensive kit. Last, it gives us a just slightly higher spammable and melee range to finish off targets than our main spammable Swallow Soul. Swallow Soul does damage from ranged and heals you over time. This is what you're going to be PvE parsing on people with most of the time. With poisons ticking, random flame blossoms hitting, and light attacks, light weaving this into enemies from ranged is extremely oppressive for them to deal with a lot of times, especially when they know you're likely sitting on a massive Merciless Resolve proc to send down range when they get anywhere near low HP. You can single-handedly change the dynamic of fights at times, all from far away. Focus on an enemy carry to force them defensive to save your teammate, put tremendous pressure on the enemy healer, forcing them to back away, leaving their team exposed. There's all kinds of applications. And what makes the build so great is constantly you'll have end cap and resolve up, ready to stealth, pivot, and global someone with a gank at any time. That brings us to Merciless Resolve. This build stacks up to 5 as you light attack, increasing your weapon and spell damage, and then at 5 stacks, you can use the proc to fire a spectral arrow, dealing huge burst damage and healing you if you're close to the target. You can use this as a ranged arrow to finish targets, use it for ganks, or even sit on the stacks for extra spell damage for bigger heals when running away. There's lots of applications to use it. Next is Vigor, a stam-based heal over time. This works great because it's your off resource of stam and doesn't eat into your ability to use damage abilities either. It also will tick over time for you while you're stealthing around to escape. Finally is our ultimate incapacitating strike, known as Incap. It does burst damage, increases the damage taken by 20% for the target, and helps a bit with sustain. This is mostly used for a quick gank. You first want to have 5 bow stacks, then stealth, Incap, Merciless Resolve, and Concealed Weapon spam. Or Swallow Soul if you're low HP and need an immediate heal. It'll look something like this. As you can see, that is an absurd amount of damage, especially for a 30k HP Nightblade split between 2 playstyles. And you'll be able to do this constantly, as Incap is an incredibly low cost ultimate, and we have Oakensoul generating our ultimate fast. Defensively, abuse dodge rolls and cloak spam as needed while keeping Vigor and Swallow Soul heals rolling. For overworld PvP, for CP in the blue tree, we have Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Master at Arms, and Wrathful Strikes. For difficult solo content, such as the final boss of Veteran Vateshran, you can replace Fighting Finesse for Reaving Blows if you prefer, for a bit more self-heals as well. The red tree is highly variable. There are lots of options here, and different people will tell you different things are better. I'll show you what I've been using in IC and Cyrodiil that's been working for my playstyle. And that is Boundless Vitality, Rejuvenation, Expert Evasion for more dodge roll abuse, and Celerity for more speed. A quick note on Rejuvenation versus Sustained by Suffering. This is a build where you avoid damage at all cost rather than tanking and mitigating through it. That said, when played correctly, Rejuve will net you more value over time to spam as needed. However, if you find yourself constantly being caught out while learning to play more slippery, then Sustained by Suffering may work better for you in those moments. Either way, you need the extra sustain to spam abilities to live, not damage mitigation. Lean into the strengths of the build, so to speak. A couple of ability changes for solo content. I found the easiest time by bringing in the green light armor shield and twisting path for concealed and cloak. Through most intense phases of fights, you can simply shield weave your Swallow Soul and flat-footed out heal and shield the damage you would normally take. I easily no sigil and no death veteran Vateshran this way. For group content, Cloth Shield is way overkill, and you can bring in anything you like here in place of it. You can bring in an Execute like Impale, a bit more damage with Shade, or even a non-used passive ability like Inner Light. I personally use Unstable Wall of Elements for more AoE and a bit of off balance for the group. There are lots of ways to chop it up here. Boom, and that's it, gamers. It's that easy. If you try it out, I hope you enjoy it. I'll leave you with a bit of gameplay so you can see it in action. The written guide is up over at the website if you need it, and come say hello over on Twitch sometime. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.